Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club, a weekly podcast about fandom and watching things with friends. Today we complete our trilogy of self-indulgence, fresh from watching The Return of the King. So prepare for cutting insight and commentary on all your favourite bits, constant talk about the extended editions we didn't watch, and lots of us quoting our favourite lines. Because after all, why not? Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club. I am your host, never fully healed, former ring bearer, Rob Pearson. And we're joined today by now very clearly aging uncle who no longer has any clue what's going on, Nathan Dighton.
Hello.
And newly elected mayor of Hobbiton and wooer of barmaids, David Jackson.
I did it. It came good at the end.
It's gone. It's done.
And he's back.
We've finished the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But not quite. There's room for a little more.
Always.
It's time for a special mailbag episode, which we are calling the appendices. Well, I'm calling it. Which we are doing because A, we can't quite bring ourselves to watch the Hobbit films yet while all the Christmas decorations are still up. But mainly B, we spoke for so long in the last 3 episodes, we ran out of time to respond to any of your lovely emails. 8 hours in total, those last 3 episodes ran.
That was a bit self-indulgent, wasn't it?
And so today, the eye of Red Shirt Cinema Club turns to you, our audience, as you cast your thoughts and opinions into the fires of our inbox. Someone else should talk now, otherwise I won't stop. Dave, you have some mailbag for us.
I was going to say, well, before Dave does that, I just thought maybe we should have called this episode Mail and Bag again.
Oh, that's good.
That's better, isn't it, than the appendices? Yeah.
I'll put that as the little subhead on there.
Mail Baggins.
I was also, that's also good in. It could be Mailbag End. That's what we should say at the end of the podcast.
I was also wondering whether anyone would watch the movies with our commentary. That's like a nice. They'd almost stretch.
It's not quite commentary. Someone there were some. Well, there was some mailbag.
That's a great idea
About doing
like
commentary.
we should literally just record our own commentary.
Maybe next
and
Christmas.
People say, if you watch the theatrical edition, you press play at the same time you press play on this audio.
Yeah.
It will sync up beautifully, and you can listen to us.
You just listen to us doing the lines slightly before they appear in the film. It is a gift. Oh, it's a gift. Yeah.
I think the reason that we haven't done that is because that's the kind of thing I would not enjoy watching and listening to, but I would enjoy doing it. So we did get a couple of requests.
Just for us.
It was real.
I don't think any of those have made the mailbag. I'm in charge of mailbag this week for the first time ever, and it's been a task because we have overlooked it 3 episodes in a row.
You've already told us you haven't put it in any particular order.
I've not put them in any particular order.
Very disappointing.
I think it's
They're
fine.
not themed.
They're not themed. Well, they're all. I've kept them to glowing praise and but mostly thoughts and experiences of Lord of the Rings. Obviously, we've just been doing Lord of the Rings, so there are some great emails that are hung over from our Alien series, and even before.
Well, Rod didn't make a big deal of it, but this is the last episode of the year, so it is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I should have thought about that and maybe gone further back. But we're in Lord of the Rings season, so there's a lot of Lord of the Rings here and quite a lot of mailbag. So I'm going to get going, and the first one's just a short one, which is really kind of just for you, Nath, because I don't think Rob will know about it, and I don't know about it. And it's from Sam, who gets a double shout out because they managed to message through Linktree.
He gets a what?
A double shout out. What did I say?
You said a shite out.
Oh,
which is different.
Double shite out.
Sorry,
and
Sam.
I hope Sam's okay.
He managed to message via Linktree.
I did see actually this.
I don't know how you did it.
Didn't even know that was a thing. Where did you see it?
It came as an email.
That makes the £3.50 or whatever we spend on Linktree every month feel really
good.
Thanks, man.
And it says, well, then you might know, Nath. It says, hi all, I'm loving the podcast so far, bringing together past and future of the podcast. If you haven't already, I urge you to watch The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins by Leonard Nimoy. One of the bizarrest things I've ever seen, but it brings me much joy. Nothing more to add other than keep up the good work, and just thought you'd enjoy the video.
Well, we should just put the link to that somewhere in the description of this.
What is it?
Podcast. It's a song.
Right.
He just sings a song.
Oh, God.
The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Does Leonard Nimoy like The Hobbit?
I don't know if it was just in the air in the 60s. and it was part of
Something
that.
was in the air in the 60s.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't think it's very good. You know, in the same way that William Shatner did like a version of
Rocket Man.
Yeah, I'm a rocket man. All of that. It's kind of like
I'm gonna be high.
It's better than that, but it's awful.
Right.
It is.
Oh, do you think that's why he did it, to be better than Shatner?
I think he did it before that Rocket Man business.
Right,
I think he
okay.
did it early on. But it's a curio.
Well, I've waited to read out this email before looking it up.
I see.
And I'm...
The effect is that none of us know really what it is.
Is the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins something from like the books? Is it a bit of... Or has he created it?
I think it's a song. I'm not sure if it's an original composition. Let me look it up now.
Yeah, I don't know why I expected you to have all the answers. I did think this would be...
Well, I did read this mail when it came.
If anybody would know, it would be you.
Weirdly, Google was just like, if I type in Leonard Nimoy Ballad of B.I., it's like, oh, you probably want the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. And if I spell out Bilbo, it's like, do you want Leonard Nimoy, the Ballad of Bingo Wings? No, I
hope that's a thing that he also did.
It's just a 2-minute song. In the middle of the earth, in the land of the Shire, lives a brave little hobbit whom we all admire, with his long wooden pipe, fuzzy, woolly toes, and it goes on. It goes on.
I can't believe you'd end it in the middle of a rhyming couplet.
Well, it's because that's where the Google preview ended.
Right, okay.
So
No.
I had to stop there.
With fuzzy toes.
It's a song composed by Charles Randolph Green and performed by Leonard Nimoy, telling the story of Bilbo Baggins.
In just 2 minutes.
It was recorded on the 1968 album Two Sides of Leonard Nimoy. Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
I really hate rhyming poems.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Because they always feel so contrived, don't they? Like the meaning is secondary to what word can I make rhyme at the end of that next sentence.
Well, the best ones do both.
Irritates me.
And sometimes the rhyme
I've not read any
reinforces
that do both. I've only read not very good
contrived
ones.
Well, you should try some really good ones.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Moving on.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a double email here
Okay.
from Tommy Taunston, who just emailed.
What a great name.
Yeah,
It's a
really
great
good.
name. Yeah, and I'm probably saying it very, very wrong. But who's got, back-to-back emails, which I thought both deserved to be here. The first one, just a lovely memory. Hello, listen to the first episode of your Lord of the Rings podcast, and it started with teary eyes. I've seen the movies countless times, but never seen the trailer since it aired, and hearing it reminded me of the anticipation a Tolkien fan felt before the movies. I remembered conversations about the elves' eyes being coloured based on where they came from. Could we tell the difference between elves from Mirkwood and elves from Lothlorien? But what I remember most is my mother. Mum is not a fan of The Fantastic. A boarding school episode involving The Exorcist and a luminescent mask put an end to that. But she loved Lord of the Rings. She took my dad to the cinema to see Bakshi's version. Dad was confused. My mother's birthday is around Christmas, so every year my brother and I took her to the movies. She loved it, and I think those memories are the best any movie has ever given me. We can thank fandom for that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Which is an amazing memory, I think.
And shout out to his confused dad.
Yeah, yeah.
We've all been there.
We've all been
Tommy.
there.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I do remember those trailers as well. I remember the trailer for The Fellowship of the Ring just coming on the TV whilst I was at my dad's house on a Sunday afternoon, and me just being unbelievably
Oh my God.
excited.
Said small Rob.
Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't heard them phrases, and listening to our own podcasts was great, and realizing that they'd gotten the actors to do fresh monologues, summing up they're not from the movies, are they? They're just fresh.
Did any of you see it in the I saw the trailer in the cinema as well. I can't remember. It might have been when I was... Oh, yes, it was. I was watching Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in November of 2001.
Oh, man.
And a trailer for The Fellowship of the Ring came on.
I didn't go and see that.
And it was the best bit of that whole cinema trip. Flipping, it was unbelievable. Because the cinema was packed. It was obviously a huge movie event.
Yeah.
It was cold as well for some reason. I remember just sitting very near the back in a big sort of like puffer coat, feeling quite warm and toasty, surrounded by people, a dark cinema, the lights come up, and there, I can't remember what the name of the track is, but there's an incredibly exciting, epic orchestral track that played during the trailer for The Fellowship of the Ring. It was just unreal.
That's a nice memory.
Great cinema experience.
I don't have any memory of the trailers, and actually, I'm putting together the episodes of our podcast and putting trailers in. There was one trailer that I thought was pretty rubbish, and I think it might have been for The Two Towers. I can't remember. It just seemed like the tone of it was so different to the movie. I felt, but I can't remember which one it was, so that's not very useful. Also, nice to hear that putting trailers at the start of the episodes is useful
has
perhaps
been noticed.
We've wondered whether it's good or bad, whether people just skip them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just skipping them, because if they're only a couple of minutes long, but I figured it's nice if you can't expect everyone to watch the movies along with us.
No.
And so you get a little flavour of some of the stuff, especially if you've seen it before. You're like, oh, I remember that.
Sense memory. It is good.
The way people sound and the music and stuff.
See, I don't remember any of the trailers for the Lord of the Rings. I remember reading about it in Total Film and being very excited about it in the build-up, and talking to our mutual friend Matt Elliott, who I was at university with, about it. But I do remember, and so I don't know if they also did it for the first film, but I remember me and Matt going to see something else at Sheffield Cineworld, and what would it have been? No, Cineworld, UGC it was, and seeing the Two Towers trailer, and that had, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it had, but I looked up what it was, and it was like a big orchestral version of Clint Mansell's Lux Eterna from Requiem for a Dream, with that Gandalf coming down the hill to the Hornburg.
I remember that one as well.
Maybe it was just something they did every time, and I just didn't see the Fellowship one.
Tommy, though,
Big T,
is back with
Double
another email, which I'm going to read now. Hi again. You probably already gotten your answer, but as a nerd from Sweden, this is close to my heart. A lot of the ingredients of Tolkien's dwarves and elves are from the Norse mythology. Dwarves are created from the Dverga, a short, stubborn race living under rocks and trees, but sometimes being shown as being almost as tall as humans. Also frequent in Wagner's Ring epos.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
I
don't know what that's referring to.
Wagner.
Or is it Wagner?
He did like a big...
the composer is this?
Yeah, load of music. About
definitely
things,
Wagner.
Yeah.
Part of elves are, of course, the Fey folk, but a lot of them are the Alfs of Norse mythology, living in Alfheim, of Marvel fame. Many of the names are picked from the same source. Very, very true. Many of the names are picked from the same source. Dwarven names, Gandalf, for example. So it's interesting how the mythology Tolkien wanted to create for Britain is so steep in Germanic traditions, which is what it should be, were it a real mythology. Real mythology there in inverted commas.
I was going to say, what?
Yeah.
Well, everything's made up, isn't it? Which is, I think, why you have like this sort of double take legitimacy to somebody making a mythology. You go, but you can't just, and you go, oh yeah, of course you can, because they're all made up. You can make up a mythology.
Tolkien was very in tune with the Norse and Scandinavian languages, calling Finnish the most beautiful language in the world, and using it as an inspiration for Quenya. This is where I don't read the books.
Is it that the elfin...
Quenya?
Yeah, Kenway, I think is the book.
Okay. He also rightfully criticised the abysmal Swedish translation of Lord of the Rings and said he regretted not having time to write the Swedish translation himself. Did he speak Swedish?
I don't think he did, but
God.
Because I was reading, I didn't bring the letters up this time, but I read a letter subsequent to that where he was talking with his publisher about the Dutch version, and there's like one where he's like, look, I'm happy that we're getting a Dutch version, but if you fuck it up in the same way that you fucked up the Swedish version, I'm going to be really angry. And then a few pages later, there's a letter where he's like, I am really angry. I've got some notes about this new Dutch version, and he's really annoyed that the guy's just changing names. So he's like, you don't need to change that. I really, really thought a lot about that, and there's nothing more innately Dutch about the thing you've said than the thing I've said anyway. And anyway, when you're visiting a foreign place, sometimes you just use this. So just stop it.
Yeah.
He's very cross. And he said, I wish I had fucking time to go through this properly. Same thing. He's always worried about time.
That is awful, isn't it?
Must be so frustrating, just being so brilliant and just seeing idiocy and incompetency everywhere you look.
Oh, I get by, Rob. I get by.
Being rubbish.
I've got used to it.
You'd love the last line. It's the last line he says, and I am very angry. Like, it's just like, no matter what else you get from this letter, that is,
I'll end on this. Tommy ends by saying, just some fun anecdotes and do study the Norse connections. And Rob, do read Tolkien's version of Beowulf.
Ooh.
Sincerely, Tommy Taunton.
It doesn't rhyme, Rob, don't worry. It is a poem, though.
I would like to read that. I've always wanted to read that. It's interesting, isn't it? Because what's the origin point? Like, you know, there are elements of Norse mythology in here, of course, but there are elements of various mythologies. Like, what was the first mythology? Who decided?
I don't know, before written.
Originally. I'm going to make up a story. Once there was an elf. What's an elf?
What I like is that I guess they come from the ones that hang around are everyone's talking about these elves. You know what I mean? Like there must be, it must speak to an experience, a collective experience, which is common enough that people are like, yeah, there probably are elves, aren't there?
The thing about mythologies, though, is they're sort of, they're more than just fiction, aren't they? They're more than just, let's make up a story.
They were trying to explain stuff, weren't they?
Explanations for, well, a lot of them are creation myths, right? They're explanations for how the world came to be. So there are like almost a religious quality to them sometimes as well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them were religions or formed the basis of religions.
Religious. I think zoomed out in hundreds of years, you talk about sort of storytelling and mythology, and we always think about it as, you know, like archaic people believing ridiculous things and eating a mushroom and then talking about, oh, elves are real, aren't they? And I think that the concept of belief has changed in the modern era in a different way as information has become much more fuller and we have like a larger scope of the world. But I think basically people are sort of the same. I always think when you look at movies, Hollywood movies, or I'm sure any movie, but Hollywood as like this sort of really concentrated place of churning out stories and stories and stories. And you must think in 500 years or 1,000 years, people are going to look back and go, and like the stories that they used to tell themselves, because we did, right? This is just us just reaffirming things to ourselves that will form essentially the basis of a mythology we'll be seeing. Like the Marvel movies will be seen as a mythology, surely. And they were saying these, and they might be able to trace it more specifically than we can trace the origins of other myths. But it'll be like, there were just these really strong, they constantly fucking talk to themselves about these really strong men who were just winning all the time.
And Spider-Man and Thor.
Yeah, exactly. One of them was a spider.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, wow, they must have loved spiders. Yes, they worship spiders.
It's strange, isn't it, that Thor also appears in this earlier mythology from Norse mythology.
And were there also strong women? No strong women.
Yes. Okay, moving on to Henrique Adao. And please, everybody forgive me for my pronunciation of your name.
Great names this week.
Really good names. I found your discussion around Legolas particularly interesting, given he's my brother's favourite character. I think this from our fellowship episode where we were all a bit like, Legolas,
doesn't do much. Seeing with his elf eyes.
So Henrique says it's my brother's favourite character. 1, because he's handsome. 2, because he's cool. I guess that's enough when you're 11, but when someone pointed out to me that throughout the trilogy he only speaks to say either something extremely obvious or something incredibly vague and cool, it did kind of change my perception of him. Still love him. By the way, and this is why I really wanted to read out this email, are you guys familiar with the theory that Frodo doesn't know Legolas's name? I believe he doesn't say his name once in the whole trilogy. And then at the end of Return of the King, when Frodo wakes up after being rescued by the eagles, he calls out everyone's name in excitement as they come into his room, except for when Legolas walks in. And Frodo not only doesn't say his name, but has this look on his face like, I know I've seen this guy before, but where?
I love this.
Anyway,
I love this so
excited to hear the next episode. As always, take care.
It's like the Office Party, isn't it? When everyone who like, oh yeah, I love you, and then the person who you just don't really speak to comes in, you're like, yeah, man, how's it going?
I wanted to read this out in our Two Towers episode to prepare us, but I don't know if you guys read this email before watching Return of the King, but I was so excited for that scene, and I was watching it, and it's like everyone comes like, Gandalf. it's like he even said Gimli,
and
and he's
just
so
happy to see Gimli.
Hello.
You mean Gimli?
Aragorn.
We didn't really talk about that scene in our Return of the King episode. There is a madness.
We were trying to get out, weren't we, by that point?
we had to run through the end quite quick.
Get in the chopper! Get in!
Get in the boat to the Undying Lands.
Yeah.
But that scene is insane.
Yeah.
What I couldn't help
love
thinking
it.
about
I love
was Merry and Pippin, how much they must have said to Billy Boyd and the other one. Just like, and you just have to keep, what are they? They're frolicking.
Yeah,
There's
frolicking is the word.
There's no other word for it. You got to frolic with Frodo for as long as it takes for everyone else to come in. So there's like, it must be a full minute later. And
Yeah.
Sam's coming in and they're still going, oh, Frodo! And it all in slow motion and
It's
soft
like
focus.
it's the kind of behaviour is like when you come home and your dog's really happy to see you.
Yeah.
Just bouncing all over you.
Oh, yeah. Senseless madness. Keeping that scene together.
Thank you very much for that email, Enrique. And it really did make my watch of the Return of the King much better. Although now I want to watch Fellowship again and see if he ever says Legolas, but he probably doesn't. Moving on, we've got a bunch of questions from Connor Smith, who says lots of lovely things. I'm going to skip through because otherwise we'll run out of time. But basically just says how much Connor is enjoying the podcast. Thank you very much, Connor. Really appreciate it. Forgive me if this arrives late or these questions have been asked by others, but thought I'd throw something into the mailbag pile for you. So, to each of you, what is your preferred version of the movies? I know you're doing theatrical, but in my household, it's extended or nothing. Are there scenes you wish had made the theatrical cut or scenes you'd cut from the extended edition to make your dream cut? Thoughts, anybody? For me, I mean, yes, there are definitely scenes. I'm not as familiar with the extended edition of Return of the King, but I am for the other two movies. And I think the theatrical movies are the best cut in terms of just a movie.
Yeah.
Like, it just the pacing, enjoyment, not being there, not outstaying its welcome. Of course, there's loads of cool, interesting stuff in the extended editions, but if I want to watch a movie, I'm watching the theatrical cut of these.
I think the theatrical cuts for Fellowship and Return of the King for me, but the extended edition of The Two Towers is my preference for that film.
How extended is it? Do you remember like how many extra minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, I think the extended editions of both Fellowship and Two Towers are over 3 hours long.
Yeah.
The extended edition of Return of the King, I think, is close to 4.5 hours long. It's a
Blimey.
big old film.
Yeah.
It's already quite extended, that one. My take on that whole thing, I guess the scene, I wished that there was more Boromir in, I can't remember, Return of the King, I guess. I wish those scenes were
Those
in
are, yeah. So there are scenes in Return of the King where you get flashbacks of Denethor, Boromir, and Faramir before Boromir has gone to Rivendell.
Right.
And he's just won. He's won back Osgiliath, I think, and they're all celebrating. And Denethor's like, "Where is he? Where's my favourite boy?" And Faramir comes in to join the celebrations, and Denethor's already like, "You." Boromir loves his brother. He's like, "Oh, he tries, father, he tries." And I think Denethor says something like, "Do not trouble me with Faramir. I know his uses, and they are few." It's brutal.
Wow, not as subtle as I remember. But what I like about the extended editions is not only are that they're such a huge thing, because they felt like a huge thing at the time, and that it's just it's funny, you can sometimes these things just happen, don't they? You could never have planned for if these films are as popular as we hope, then we could do an extended version. You'd never bake that into or the plan that you're presenting to New Line or whatever at the beginning. No. And it has become, we're still talking about it all these years later. Just shows how it gives why it explains why we were so excited. There's a real potency to it. And what I was going to say was it comes, I think, from that era of genre filmmaking, like sci-fi and fantasy films in the sort of late 70s maybe, but early 80s, all the stuff that we've talked about, like the extra minutes put into Alien, the secret extra cut of Blade Runner that was 10 years in the making, everyone complaining that there should be where's David Lynch's real Dune? It's like, well, does it even exist? All of that. And I think that is where the urge in the fandom for an extended edition comes from.
Yeah, it's funny that this only really exists in sci-fi and fantasy, isn't it? Or not even extended cuts, but different cuts. No one's going like, where's the director's cut of like Four
The
Weddings
Holiday.
and a Funeral?
Yeah.
Like it's
and I like a thing that Ridley Scott just does a lot as well, like with Kingdom Come. I guess.
But Lord of the Rings is the quintessential extended edition. Like, I think everybody knows about the Lord of the Rings has a theatrical cut and an extended edition.
It's the first time I was aware of extended editions as a thing.
Yeah.
It was such a thing as well. Like, every Christmas, you'd have the new film come out in the cinema, and the previous year's film come out as as a beautifully presented extended edition DVD. Those DVDs were unbelievably beautiful.
So proud of just owning them.
Yes.
They're lovely.
So
did they have 10-minute previews of the next filming? I was reading.
I can't remember.
Because I don't remember watching them if they did.
And they've gradually got uglier and uglier as the mediums have improved. So I've got the big Blu-ray extended edition set as well. Just like comes in like a big box. And the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, which looks fantastic on a big projector that we've been watching it on.
Yeah.
Although despite the fact I've discovered that my copies are ruined and bad. But the actual box, the box is not great, is it?
It's a standard box.
It's a flimsily made little cardboard
I think
sleeve.
we've lived through an era though where I was buying, I used to buy shitloads of DVDs.
Yeah.
And I used to love getting those editions, and I used to put them on my wall. And now, over the last 20 years, I've really come to value having space in my house.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't want a big
or at
fucking
least,
box.
Or at least not having, like, I no longer enjoy the look of a shelf full of DVD spines.
I enjoy
So they're all. I've got like a wardrobe unit with like cupboards in it, so you can. All my DVDs are behind closed doors now, so they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's 'cause
Frodo's
they're not
memories
for public
of the Shire.
consumption. That's why.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't go in there. Do not look in there. We should explain, Rob, that we were watching your 4K Blu-rays, and in Two Towers and Return of the King, there was a stutter.
Yeah.
That we had to change editions.
swapped out.
Luckily, Nath also had his editions here.
It was like a pit stop.
And Nath's just worked. We did it really efficiently in the
I
Return of the
think
King.
if you cleaned up those discs, they might be all right.
What do you
Is
mean
it
clean them up?
fingerprints?
It was literally the first time I'd taken those discs out the box.
That's bad.
I'm not saying you've treated them badly. I just, when I took one out, I saw a thumbprint and I thought, well, hopefully, hopefully
it
that's
can't
good
have been.
news.
It was literally the first time I'd ever removed it from its box.
You
was
should send
watching
them
it
back. You should
Well,
buy a
it's
new
too late
copy.
now.
Buy a new copy and
Dust
send
it for
that to the other
prints.
I
one.
mean, it's all right
That's
because
illegal. Don't do that.
at home,
Is it?
I'll just watch
not dusting for prints.
I'll just watch the extended editions, and I've watched those before, and they work fine.
Fair. Maybe it's God's way of telling you that the theatrical. Maybe God's answered this letter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he through the means.
We need to crack on because I've got loads to get
All right,
through.
yep, sorry,
Connor's got a bunch of questions. I'm going to just try and
Oh,
pick
wow,
some out.
okay, sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm afraid so.
We were just chatting.
Yeah, one which I think is very topical. Are you guys excited for / going to see the War of the Rohirrim? If you've seen it, what are your thoughts?
I
on
took
it?
a picture of the poster of it on the tube last night. Last night I went to see Tottenham Hotspur playing Manchester United.
Oh, yeah.
And I took a picture of the just 'cause I thought, you know what? I'll look back in years to come and think, do you remember when there was a Lord of the Rings film in cinemas? Then
Yeah.
I took a picture of it.
Yeah,
I'm going to go and see it.
I am not excited about it.
Me neither.
I'm not excited about it. No.
I'm almost certainly not going to go to the cinema to see it. Not through any like show of defiance. I will not go. I just don't
I thought we were going
really
to
go
go
to the
together.
cinema. Really?
Yeah,
Oh, we could.
we talked about it.
We
And then we
could.
were going to record an episode.
We could do a bonus episode about it. Well, I'd like to see it anyway. I have very low expectations.
What about if it's still in cinemas in January? Because
Maybe.
otherwise we have to wait for
Yeah.
ages, aren't we?
Yeah. No, it'll be like on Prime or whatever for
Your Max.
$17.99 early home cinema rental.
Yeah.
That's probably when I will watch it. When I can just watch it without
home.
having to leave my house.
On your phone. That's where you should, the cinematic experience on your phone is to give me the look.
I'm going to do one more of Connor's questions before you guys start arguing. In a world of sequels and remakes and franchises being beaten to death, it seems inevitable that we will see more adaptations of Tolkien in the following years. What would you all like to see? What will be your dream project / filmmakers / actors? Hobbit remake, Silmarillion adaptation,
Something from-
more TV, more movies?
You can't adapt the Silmarillion. It's like adapting the Bible.
Right.
You would have to pick.
Well, there was that movie, The Bible.
Is there?
Yeah,
The greatest
laughed about
story
it.
ever told.
We laughed about it in one of the Star Trek episodes. It was in the Nath was telling us the box office hits for the year, and I think the number one movie one
Was
year
The
was
Bible.
The Bible.
Well, they were doing all those biblical epics, and the
God
natural
almighty.
step was like, let's just do the Bible.
yeah,
lads.
I think your
Wow.
point still stands, but yeah,
You would pick a chapter. I mean, they've already done it, and we've talked in the office about this. In my opinion, the strange decision to pick out for their next big movie, The Hunt for Gollum, whenever that's going to come out.
Not excited.
There's so much.
So when is
so much
that
source material.
in the story?
It's in the 17 years between Bilbo Baggins' 111th birthday and Gandalf finally sending Frodo off on the quest. He goes out to look for Gollum, obviously, because he knows Gollum owned the ring before. He's trying to ascertain whether or not this is the One Ring.
Yeah.
And in those 17 years, he finds Gollum, gets some info out of him, lets him go, goes off to Gondor to do some more research. And in that time, Gollum is captured by the forces of Mordor, and that's when he's tortured. That's all sort of condensed and omitted from the films.
He's also caught by Aragorn at one point.
Yeah. Because Gandalf is working with Aragorn. He's like, can you help me find him again? I need to speak to him again. And I find it inexplicable that they've decided that is the thing they want to make a movie of, when they could pick anything from the Silmarillion to explore, and it would be exciting as hell. I guess they think they've got bankable characters in Gandalf and Aragorn and Gollum, and bringing them back into a film is going to get people into the cinema, and they don't want to take a risk on doing an adaptation of Beren and Luthien would be the obvious thing. But I guess in bringing Arwen more into the Lord of the Rings films, they're sort of doing that. Beren and Luthien is a very similar story to Aragorn and Arwen, like a mortal man and an elf lady giving up her immortality to be with this man. So I would probably do something like that, or I would bring Melkor, aka Morgoth, the original Dark Lord, Sauron's boss. I'd do something with him.
It should be called Sauron's boss.
Sauron.
Lord of the Rings. I feel the same as you about the Gollum film. Having seen things juiced for content like Star Wars, I can't see what I'm going to get out of that film. It's not the telling of a large story. It's because Gollum was so successfully done in this original that we're even considering it's being considered. And
they're thinking of bringing it back. I don't know if this is confirmed, but I keep seeing those stupid articles online that look real and aren't. Like, Ian McKellen confirmed to return as Gandalf for The Hunt for Gollum. Viggo Mortensen confirmed. Does that mean we're going to get more of this dog shit de-aging tech put in there? Because Aragorn is going to be younger in this film than he was in the events of The Lord of the Rings. And Viggo Mortensen, and this is a great fact, is now older than Ian McKellen was when they filmed the trilogy.
And I think that probably the only stories from Lord of the Rings worth telling in full on a big the three that we've already...
The ones we have.
That we've already got. And I think Rings of Power, I actually quite enjoyed the first season. I've not seen the second. I was just wearied by the discourse, and I just didn't want to... So maybe at some point...
I didn't really take any notice of the discourse and quite enjoyed my time with season one, and I'm looking forward to watching season two.
I enjoyed season one.
Having read very little of the discourse for season two either.
Some of the decisions that they made did irk me a little bit, but I enjoyed the reverence with which they treated the world, and at least they're trying to bring something fresh and slightly new to it. I'm not excited. I just wanted to say that on the Hobbit, I found when I was researching something else from an older episode, just from a different, it just seemed like from a different time before I was hurt. I'd sent an email to Matt Elliott, and you guys know me. People listening to this mostly know me reasonably well over the years. The subject line to this email, which I sent to Matt, is in all capital letters, excited like a massive baby. And it's just a link to a preview on Slash Film, an interview with Jackson and Guillermo del Toro about the Hobbit film. And it's the email's really short. It says, every question is answered exactly like I hoped it would be, with an exclamation mark.
Yeah. Shaw in talks to come back, Lee and Howe on board, all the cast asked to return, Ron Perlman definitely in there somehow.
Yeah. This, honestly, I have pain in my chest wondering what those films could have been if Guillermo del Toro had stayed on board and they were made as they were originally intended to be made. I guess we'll get onto this a little bit more when we tackle The Hobbit in the new year. But, what a shame.
And it had to be different. That's the thing. It is a different register, a different sort of story.
Yes.
So I think that's why Jackson wisely said no in the first place.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it wasn't purely it was about needing to feed his studio and the film industry in New Zealand, and probably wanting to tell those stories as well. But it's It's a compromise thing that we've got, which again, as Rob says, we'll explore. I'm not one of those people who's like, well, we have Lord of the Rings, so I never want to see it again. I'm actually quite excited about the HBO Harry Potter series. It'll be interesting. You know, the first two of those films.
I'm intrigued just to see what they've done with it.
And new kids will love it. You know, kids who've never seen Unburdened.
I just realised I forgot to do that audition tape for my daughter. She's like, I'd like to play Hermione. I didn't.
No.
I missed the deadline. Oh, well, she wouldn't have got it.
You
anyway.
did? No, Rob. I'm so convinced that she could have got it. I was so impressed when she came and was on the Friday feature.
Yeah.
I've been telling everyone, Rob's daughter's applying to be Hermione Granger. I think she could do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, she's not now.
Let's cut this bit out.
Next question, Connor.
Well, Connor, no more of Connor's questions because there are too many. But Connor, thank you so much. Connor ends by saying, anyway, that's my contribution. Also, loving the chats and community you've built in the Patreon chats too. Hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year. Wishing you all heaps of success and happiness.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks, Connor. That's very kind of you.
I'm wishing that for us as well.
Me too. Moving on to Sam Novak, who says, guys, first off, I just want to say a quick thanks for all the work you do on PlayStation Access and now with your podcast. I first discovered you with Rob's top 10 times Final Fantasy absolutely blew us away. The writing of that video, why am I reading this out? And the depth, flavour and unabashed granularity of your appreciation was right up my street. And I've been a fan of your collective work ever since.
Great, next email.
So, well done. I often listen to your content in my own time, but I'm excited to introduce my wife to your work with your Lord of the Rings discussions.
Oh, nice.
She's become a convert to the annual viewing experience, a ritual I've been observing probably since the films came out. We're going back to the theatrical cuts this year, as I've recently decided that the extended editions actually remove a bit from the films by their additions. Your questions each week are excellent, but I thought I'd drop in something new. In the event that revisiting such a familiar series of films leaves you wanting a different lens. Something I think about now, each year I watch and love these movies, is what scene I would change given the chance. Nothing major, sometimes just a line delivery or dialogue choice. It's nitpicky, but I know the movie so well at this point that those moments that are just a touch less well considered than all the rest stand out like a broken toe. I'll close by saying thank you again for bringing so much thought, humour, insight and sincerity to your work. So,
Faramir.
Sam has got has proposed 3 changes, one for each film that I will read out, but asks that we consider
Army of the Dead.
Oh,
so yeah. What specifically though? Like a dialogue change?
I think the whole approach to it. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. Just I think there should be more strange and scary and tortured and not so pantomime Pirates of the Caribbean zombie like.
I just got to that point in the radio drama on the cycle in. I just got to that part in the radio drama, and I think only judging by what it's taken from the books. Actually, I was wrong in our main episode, and it does kind of just pop up there, and a message. All the Rangers are arriving at that time, so that and they aren't in the film. They just become Elrond going to the camp, and the Rangers say, "We've got a message, one from Arwen," and I think that's the sword. So it is actually at that point that he gets the sword. And another one from Elrond. And the one from Elrond is, remember the paths of the dead. And Aragorn has just looked in the Palantir and faced Sauron. And he's been talking a lot about that an hour long awaited draws nigh and all of that. So he is ready to kind of step up and be the king. And he says, I'm not fucking doing that. And then something else happens and he's like, I guess I'm going to have to do that. And all of the Rangers go with him, and then Legolas and Gimli.
All the Rangers go. Are all the Rangers of the Dunedain, are they all?
There is kin.
That race.
That's what. So I think they are the kind of the closest to the sort of deposed nobles of Numenor, I think.
Did you say the message from Elrond was simply remember the powers of the dead?
Remember the paths of the dead.
The paths.
And so all he says is, I'm going to take the paths of the dead. And Theoden's like, what are you on? Are you high? And he goes off and does it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got to do it now.
It's correct for the story as well, because you can't imagine them getting to the Pelennor field to charge and Aragorn also being there, because then Theoden can't have his moment as much. Yeah. It's good that Aragorn's out of the way.
Theoden does say, which again is just teeing up that moment. He says, he feels in some way diminished. He says, even though I feel less like we're going to, he says something cool, but about, basically that, like, I don't feel as prepared now. Shit, but cool. I know you've got to go and do your thing. So anyway, the framing of that could just be tweaked.
And when you say Faramir again and again and again,
just, I just wish that he had. I think you can achieve him being the obstacle without losing some of the dignity, which I think is so important to the character.
I would maybe just sort of change something about Éowyn, probably in Return of the King. Just that scene with her with the cup of wine. I was just like, let's move on from this. I don't think there's anything. I
think you're right. I think, and again, you can just change it. It can be in there. I think that if she just has a bit more knowingness, like I'm still into you, and a bit of a tinge of just sadness, like, but I know this isn't happening.
Yeah,
that would still work, and it would give her a bit more. It would elevate her a little.
Yeah, and then we can see a wink at Faramir. That would be good.
Just slapping Faramir's ass.
Yeah, well, it's all come good for Faramir in Nath's version of these movies.
Better than Boromir.
I never met Boromir.
Call me Boromir. That's a different scene.
Okay, should we hear Sam's? They might be incredibly nitpicky, and I haven't read them.
Okay,
so this is exciting because he does say don't read until you've done your own. Fellowship of the Ring. Then so small, but Viggo's delivery at the Council of Elrond. It has no other master. Always sounds so oddly nasal. This is nitpicky.
Wow, that is nitpicky.
This only induces a small shudder and is quickly forgotten. A nearby scene that my brothers and I have always mid-heard but would change is Boromir checking out the sword. He says, the shards of Narsil. But all three of us, for years, collectively heard, it shattered nicely.
That's not a problem with the films, though, is it?
You've angered Rob.
Sam, you've angered Rob. Slightly too nasal. Viggo's delivery is perfect.
I kind of know what he's talking about with the delivery of that line, though. He is a little bit like, it has no other master.
Okay, Two Towers. What the heck is up with the perspective at the Black Gate? When Frodo and Sam hide beneath their cloak, I cannot for the life of me understand the physical relationships we're meant to infer from the camera angles. Or maybe it's the timing, but the way the sequence is shot takes me out of the movie each time. I didn't see that at all.
No, I didn't see
that.
It's
a slightly barren... You are kind of like... Well, they're on
top of a hill. They slide down the hill, and the gate's in front of them.
Yeah.
There's some bad guys marching in.
Yeah.
They see the dust and rubble falling. They come over to have a look. They're hiding under the cloak. It's fine.
Rob doesn't like this game.
What's next? What's the next
from Return of the King, Éowyn's scream after I am no man. It just feels half-hearted and forced and honestly just impossible to get right.
She didn't need to do the scream. Just I am no man and then the stab.
So he says, why not pause before man, then deliver that word with the stab?
I'm not.
I am no man.
That would be bad.
I think that's also quite
or just keep the line as it is, but stab without the scream. My instinct to internally recoil is primed throughout that fight from now until the end of time.
It's funny the things that set people
Thanks,
off, isn't it? Maybe she should have slapped the Witch King of Angmar on the ass. And then stabbed him.
Where's this coming from?
A lot of ass slapping in this one. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. It is interesting those when you've reached the point where you can start to try and change.
That's like being in a
things.
marriage, and it's like the way you put the butter lid on is really fucking pissing me off.
Yeah. Can you work on that? Next up is an email from Carl Harrison who says, hello Rob, Nathan, Dave. I love the pod and I'm very grateful it's still going on after Star Trek ended, which I think is our Star Trek rather than actual Star Trek.
Yeah.
I wrote a huge email of reasons why I think Lord of the Rings are the greatest movies of all time, but then got swiftly irritated by my own self-serving soup of nostalgic fandom. Like, who is this for exactly? We have an unhealthy love for Lord of the Rings because they're bloody great films, and like most great films, are a symptom of the time and conditions they were made.
He just gone straight into his other email.
This is it. I don't believe for a second they would be this good if they had an enormous budget. I do think they probably did have an enormous budget.
Relatively large.
Today's CGI and 4K cameras. I feel it is the lack of these that force them into being exactly how they were created. This and an ungodly amount of additional reasons you'll be thankful I since deleted are what makes them so special. From a purely personal perspective, I can say that The Fellowship came out when I was 11, an age where I didn't need to worry about any of this adult nonsense and had endless time to get washed away in a beautifully crafted and believable world. One that I don't think has ever been rivaled, except in the Hobbit films. A joke, of course. They were dog shit. All the best to you guys, and a Merry Christmas too.
Wow, that was good.
God, you just reminded me of my dad.
Does he love the Hobbit films?
And
the Hobbit films are even better than Lord of the Rings.
My dad was the first one who introduced me to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. He had these really cool posters as well, that I've since found online. Just really strange artwork that I had in my bedroom for a while.
Sort of dark green.
Yes.
Great, yeah. I think that guy is from KLF. The music. KLF's going to rock you. KLF did rock you, Rob, with those cool posters.
And I had those posters on my wall, and I went to the cinema to see The Lord of the Rings with my dad. And it must have been maybe, I don't know, a few years after the Hobbit films had come out, and I was around his house. It's just like, you know what? I actually think the Hobbit films are better than the Lord of the Rings.
Oh my goodness me!
They're just more fun, aren't they? There's just more action in them, and you know, just that moment where I realised that my dad was like a fucking idiot.
I guess he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Terrible taste.
When did Rob's dad abandon
taste.
reason for madness?
He has abandoned reason for madness. Yes, it's that. Exactly that poster I had. I also remember going to see Avatar at the cinema with my dad and him coming out and being like, oh my God, I think that's the most incredible, that's going to go down in history as a film that's changed cinema. Unbelievable experience.
I mean, it kind of did, didn't it? It's just that none of us can really understand why.
It's just, he just did, maybe I'm wrong and he's just there just innocently enjoying things that are fun.
I think it's
I'd love to enjoy that.
I think he's in the minority thinking that the Hobbit films are better than the Lord of the Rings. I think he's probably in the minority there.
But I think he also said, because, quite a lot of the Lord of the Rings, they're quite boring, aren't they? It's quite boring and slow. In The Hobbit, it's just action all the time.
Well, didn't you say, I don't know if you said this on the podcast or not, that your dad skips through the opening credits of Bond movies?
Yes. I was watching a Bond movie with him, and he got the opening action bit, and then the song starts.
Oh, what a thrill. No, not this.
We were watching it on a VHS. So that's how old it was. It must have been like one of the Brosnan ones.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's a quality of fast forwarding a VHS that is really dismissive, isn't it? Just like a lines going across the screen. So disrespectful.
Yes, so imprecise as well when you try and stop it.
And he skipped the Treebeard chapters when he was reading The Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah. Well, maybe as well. I've skipped the whole of The Lord of the Rings reading, so we need to crack on. Commander Ed Collins, who signed off as Commander Ed Collins and so gets read as Commander Ed Collins. Ed wrote in to tell us that he's someone who works long hours and tends to put the happiness of his family ahead of his own. But, and this is over to Ed now, listening to this podcast has given me a reason to say no and to be a bit selfish from time to time. So one evening I declared, I want the big TV to watch Alien. My eldest, 12, was intrigued and I let her watch the first Alien with me.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's since been reclassified to a 15, so judged it okay.
Okay.
She loved it. She did nearly have a heart attack at the jump scare when Dallas gets got and now refuses to watch the rest of the films. So I say, job done, Alien fan for life. And now with Christmas coming and getting a bit more time off work and family time at home, I'm hoping to introduce them to the other films. The Lord of the Rings trilogy in particular can be on instead of only the Harry Potter films. And if they like Galaxy Quest, then maybe they'll be up for a Star Trek film too. One can only hope. So thank you again, and I'm very much looking forward to watching along with you all in 2025 and beyond, and finding out what you've picked to be the next few genres. Merry Christmas to you all and your families and loved ones.
What do you think is the most Christmassy of the Alien films that they could pick?
Oh,
Prometheus.
Resurrection. It's about resurrection.
It is. That's true. Prometheus has got
that's
some
more of an
snow.
Easter film.
More Easter
isn't it?
film, yeah.
I think Aliens. Something quite die-hardy and just fun about that.
That's true.
Yeah, and it ends on a kind of a happy note.
Definitely not Alien 3.
Not
No,
Alien
not
3.
Alien 3,
No, I
not
can't
a
think of a
Christmas
time
film.
of year when it is appropriate to
No.
watch Alien 3, actually. I guess I wanted to bring this up a little bit to ask you about your experiences of showing your kids Lord of the Rings specifically. Rob, I don't know if you have done that yet.
I'm trying. You've got to play it cool when
Yeah.
you're trying to get your child to like something you really like.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm reading The Hobbit to my daughter.
A subtle
and
ploy.
I'm not trying to
See what happens.
push it.
No.
The last night or the last time we read, she actually asked, "Can we read more Hobbit tonight?" I'm like, yeah. It's working. I'm probably going to have to show her a Hobbit movie before I show her a Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah,
There's an
that's fair.
incredible Rankin Bass animation.
But yeah, I've not yet got a strategy for how I'm going to... Because The Lord of the Rings is totally very different to The Hobbit. The Hobbit is out and out just a children's book.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings is not.
No.
So I'll have to cross the bridge of Khazad-dûm fandom when I get to it.
Yes. What about you, Nath? Your
I've got
kids
no
are older.
No, they're not into it really.
No.
I think for a long time they said that they'd watched it when they just definitely hadn't.
Yeah.
And they've never as my family bought me that Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, a couple of years ago, and I think we watched Fellowship, half of Fellowship before. And like when we watched stuff at home, I am an absolute dickhead about like, no, please, no one go on your phone because you being on your phone spoils the film for me. So
Yes.
if we're watching something shit and it's just some TV, that's fine. But like if we're sitting down to watch something, please let's watch it. And you all know that I really like Lord of the Rings in particular, and so I think that they don't want to be in that environment.
Yeah.
So I think which is maybe fair. I'm a bit sad that they've never given it a proper shake because the films are fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And everything else, literally everything else.
I'm trying to help you.
Yeah. Everything else that I like, they're kind of into. Do you know what I mean? Like they're smart kids, man.
When it comes to it, I don't feel like watching it. I'd rather watch Tottenham Hotspur on my phone.
Do you know, like
I think you should turn the phone off, Jay.
that we have
Madeline Dighton, do not take me for some watcher of cheap shit.
Yeah. So I don't know. That
was fun.
I guess what I'm saying is the real frustration is it's not like they in general think Dad doesn't know what he's talking about.
No.
They're kind of like, you tend to like interesting film. We're not always going to think one to one.
Yeah.
But they know I like films and that my opinions are like normally sane.
There's a lot of pressure. I mean, we felt it doing this podcast. There's a lot of pressure when you love a thing,
Yeah.
and you want there's pressure on the person who's being shown the
That's
thing
true.
to, like, Rob, I'm sure you felt some pressure watching some of the Star Trek movies, and
But they love that. So in our house, annual like Christmas watching. For Jay, he grew up with the kind of, he was peak era Pixar. So all of like the first 5 films were on DVD. Cars came out, he watched it at the cinema. So if he's like, when he was still at school, if he had a sick day, even in sixth form, probably watched Cars a couple of times. Like just like that's what he's got on. Maybe, and Harry Potter is huge at Christmas. There will just tend to be Harry Potter just movies on from iPlayer or Netflix or whatever they've been on in the background. Like not really super different from Lord of the Rings, but it's just they're not into. And the other thing is Star Wars. Just do not give a fuck about Star Wars. And I took them to see The Force Awakens. They were like, "That's pretty good." Last Jedi, and they were both like, "Well, I'm never watching a fucking Star Wars film again." Genuinely,
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's good to hear. That some people who didn't have all the baggage that I had watching those
I
films.
just can't see how you can watch Fellowship of the Ring and not think it's fucking incredible. What the fuck
Yeah.
is wrong with them?
Well, we'll have Rob's dad on as a guest soon. I think we've only got time for one more.
Okay.
Especially if we're going to discuss the discussion that is posed by Chelsea Murray, who says, "Hi, Dave, Nath, and Robert S. Pearson. As a 30-something mum of a 1-year-old, married to a man who isn't particularly fond of sci-fi or gaming, it's a little difficult these days to get my fix of one or both things. Fortunately for me, your amazing podcast allows me to scratch that itch, along with a sneaky half-hour session on the PlayStation when Bub is asleep. Loving all the episodes so far, but felt a particularly strong pang of nostalgia for this week's episode on the Fellowship of the Ring, especially when Dave spoke about going in knowing nothing about it. I too was in the same boat, going to the cinema with my dad and older brother as a bright-eyed tween, and quizzically asking my dad as the credits rolled, "Is that it?" Upon learning of the additional movies, this started
Rob
my...
jumps down 5 rows. Yeah. 2 more films.
Upon learning of the additional movies, this started my keen reading of the books, which in hindsight spoiled the other 2 movies for me, but what's a kid to know? And my obsession with trawling through the movies' official websites for new information, pictures, anything to show what was to come. Which brings me to my thought about fandom. I absolutely love these movies and so would call myself a fan. However, I have absolutely no interest in watching anything new related to the franchise. The Rings of Power, for example. Is it because I have so much love for the movies, I don't want them to be spoiled by anything less than the standard they set for me way back when, or something else? Can you be a true fan of something by willingly omitting other versions or spin-offs related to the thing you love without even giving them a chance? Interested to hear your thoughts. Sending love to you all from Oz. Chelsea Murray. Thanks, Chelsea.
From Australia.
From Australia.
Unbelievable.
Is it okay? Do you willingly omit things? I've started willingly omitting Star Wars things now.
I think you either have the choice of getting angrier and angrier, or
Yeah.
just saying, it doesn't matter, I don't need to have everything in my garden. A garden's a terrible analogy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like, because we've also talked about how fandoms are often about accumulating and ordering and collecting and putting things on a shelf. And I think there's that urge, yes, everything, but everything therefore must be acceptable. And I think that's where some anger comes from. And
Yeah.
we live in a time, Dave, where if you're going to enjoy Star Wars, you're going to have to get used to just letting some things just slide on by.
Yeah. I think so. I feel okay about that. I know, and I suppose I let other people do the hard work now. I've definitely stopped being excited about new Star Wars.
Watching Star Wars.
I've stopped watching.
You've not seen any Skeleton Crew, have you?
No, I haven't seen any Skeleton Crew. But the thing is, I'll
Or
let
The Acolyte.
other people. You watch it, and then you tell me. I will listen for your opinion, and you haven't told me to watch it, so
I've stopped watching it.
you've stopped watching it. And I haven't seen The Acolyte, which is that
And
was
I'm
the first
learning,
one I didn't
'cause
watch.
I was watching The Acolyte and then going on our Slack channel, Star Wars Slack, and just being quite sad every week.
Yeah.
And then I thought, what am I giving to everyone by doing that?
Yeah,
Nothing.
it's tricky. It is tricky, but I am excited for Andor season 2.
Same.
So I mean, I don't know. I've loved some
mix.
Star Wars spin-offs. This is obviously the closest thing I have probably to your feelings on the Lord of the Rings is Star Wars for me. I do love Star Wars, and I do willingly omit stuff, and I do shudder now when new things are announced unless they have, a really special like trailer or something that speaks to me personally. But I think it is part of being a fan is experiencing pain, and then part of being a person is choosing not to experience pain sometimes.
The trick
Yes.
is not minding that it hurts.
Yeah. I think I have an unusually for me, knowing my personality, an unusually healthy approach to this kind of thing, in that I'm very happy to just not care or not watch things that I'm not interested in. Like I have not enjoyed the Hobbit films, but it has not affected in any way my love for the Lord of the Rings, and I don't think it makes me any less a Lord of the Rings fan or Tolkien fan or whatever you want to call it, to not enjoy those films.
No.
When The Hunt for Gollum comes out, I will watch it probably. If I don't like it, I'm not going to get hung up about it. I'm not going to care. And I would advise everyone to just take that. Just like what you like, and what you don't like, don't worry about it. There's a bunch of, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. I really don't give that much of a hoot about the other stuff around it, like Crisis Core, all these other little spin-offs and things. They are, they're not. I don't love them as much as Final Fantasy VII. They don't make me angry. It doesn't diminish the thing that I loved in the first place. And so I don't know what the original question was. I've forgotten now. But I don't think you need to get hung up on not enjoying everything that comes out for a thing. And also, you're not owed stuff that you like all the time.
No.
There are other people who may enjoy that kind of stuff, and that's also fine. Like, just like the stuff you like, and let other people like the stuff they like.
I agree. I wanted to say we're just we're talking to the person who left one of the Hobbit. I would have stuck it out.
I
matter
didn't leave
what.
just because I thought this film was crap. I felt ill and I felt sick,
Because
and
of the frames.
I wasn't feeling well going in. I had a bit of a headache. Wasn't feeling particularly great that day, and the 48 frames per secondness was literally making me have motion sickness. And Stephen Fry then turned up, and I was like, well, I'm just going now.
Those films were, what a ride those films were. So we agree, basically.
And
Who was it who wrote in with that?
Chelsea Murray.
Chelsea, we agree with Chelsea Murray. Just do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a dangerous need, isn't it, for more? You know, like if can't. And also, I like new things, and I want movies and television to bring me new things to enjoy. I don't want. I would honestly. I could have saved Disney so much money if I was in charge of their like Star Wars budget and said, just put that on new stuff.
It's easy, but the thing is, no one really ever knows until something comes out whether it's going to work or what's.
No.
So I do understand, but in hindsight, we're fucking wise. We're wise as hell.
We're wise, and we have now reached mailbag end. Oh, I said that weirdly. I sort of ruined.
End.
Yeah.
Mailbag end.
Mailbag end. Bag end. Mailbag end. There we are. We've reached the end of this, and I suppose the end of this episode. Our first ever mailbag episode, which happened slightly by accident, but actually I think it's been great, and I've really enjoyed.
I really enjoyed it as well.
It's been a nice change of pace.
It has, and we've got some lovely, lots of more I could have read, and please do keep them coming in. It's really, we love reading your emails, and there are lots of great insights and little anecdotes and things.
So we're starting the new year with The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting. I'm glad that we didn't try to squeeze it in before Christmas. And also because, anyone who's been following along will notice that the last three, as Rob said, the last 3 episodes have been very long. What that's meant for us is that because we fit the recording of the podcast into certain sections of our work day, that we've had to record them in over 2 sessions each.
Yeah.
So we've had much less time to do any other podcasting.
I bet you can't find the join though, because we're excellent.
And can you guess who edited those episodes? It's impossible. You can't do it.
But yeah, it has been a lot. And this has been a slightly shorter episode.
Which is why we reject.
Exactly. But,
It's been almost a normal length episode.
It has.
It's been a theatrical
It's
cut.
what they need to be.
Yes.
This is what, we need the producer going, like, we don't have time for that. Okay, we're going to...
It's amazing that none of us had a little producer that lives in our head.
Yes.
No,
No.
it doesn't work like that.
We haven't.
But yes, thank you, Dave, for curating that lovely list of mailbag end.
No worries.
We will be back next Monday with The Hobbit.
You can say it.
An
You can say it.
unexpected journey. So if you are watching along, what a great way to kick off 2025.
We need to be more excited than that.
I'm excited for a different reason. Like we're getting back on the, the last 3 episodes have been quite self-indulgent. We all like the Lord of the Rings films, just chatting for a long time about things we like. We're back in the saddle now
It's a challenge.
for and there's so much to talk about.
I would love it. There's always hope. And there is a hope that you might say, do you know what? These are all right. You've never seen them?
I didn't hate The Hobbit. I've seen the first one.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. Didn't like it as much as the Lord of the Rings. I've never seen Smaug.
I'm looking
on
forward
screen.
to you seeing Smaug.
come on.
I've never
This is
seen him on
exciting.
screen. So that would be cool.
And there's so much more Stephen Fry.
Excellent. I can't wait.
At least you know he's coming.
But yes, please do continue to send us your mail. Our email address is redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com. If you are not yet a Patreon supporter, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. You can also follow us on social media. We are on X. We are on Blue Sky as well. So look for us there. Look for our coming. First light on the 5th day. Actually, look for our coming next Monday. That's when we're going to be back. We will see you then. Have a very happy New Year, everybody. Until next time, goodbye. You've been listening to Red Shirt Cinema Club. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just check the link in the description. We'd also love to hear from you. Email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com or follow us on social media. We'll be back with another episode next Monday. See you then.